The grand alien court was filled with glowing crystals and tall guards, their armor shining like silver fire. At the center sat the king, his heavy crown made of dark stone. His throne rose above all others, reminding everyone of his power. Beside him stood his 3 daughters, the alien princesses, their faces beautiful but proud. Their eyes sparkled with arrogance as they watched the guards bring in a new prisoner. The prisoner was not another alien warrior, he was a human. His clothes were torn, his hands tied with glowing chains. He looked small compared to the towering aliens, his skin soft compared to their scaled bodies. Many in the court laughed when they saw him. To them, a human was nothing but a weak creature. The 3 alien sisters began to whisper among themselves. Their voices were sweet but filled with cruel amusement. "Look at him," the eldest sister said. "His arms are so thin. Do humans even fight?" The second sister laughed. "Maybe he is not a warrior. Maybe he is just a farmer lost in the stars." The youngest sister covered her mouth, trying not to laugh too loud. "He looks so fragile. A single touch might break his bones." The crowd joined their laughter, mocking the human as if he were a toy. Yet the human did not bow his head. His eyes were steady, his face calm. He stood tall even though he was chained. His silence confused many. Some expected him to cry or beg, but he did not. The king raised his hand. The hall grew silent. His voice was deep and heavy. "Bring the human closer." The guards pushed the prisoner forward. The human walked with steady steps. He did not stumble. His gaze met the king's without fear. The king studied him for a long time. "You are from Earth, a small world, a place far from the strength of the stars." "Yes," the human answered simply, his voice clear. The 3 sisters laughed again. "He does not even defend himself," the eldest mocked. "He accepts weakness." But the king leaned forward, his golden eyes sharp. "Tell me, human, do you know why you are here?" The human's lips curved slightly, not into a smile but into something calm. "Because you wish to test me." The king's throne room grew cold. The audience shifted uneasily. How could a human speak so boldly before the alien king? The sisters scoffed. "He is pretending to be brave," the second one sneered. "Inside he is shaking. Maybe he thinks courage is enough to save him," the youngest added, rolling her eyes. Still, the king did not laugh. Instead he asked, "What makes your kind survive when so many greater races fall?" The human answered without hesitation, "We survive because we endure. We fall and rise again. We are fragile, yes, but that only makes us stronger." A silence spread across the court. The words were simple but carried weight. Some aliens frowned, unable to believe. Others looked at him with new curiosity. The eldest sister broke the silence with sharp laughter. "Strong? Him. Look at his body. Look at his soft skin. If a storm came, he would be the first to fall." The second waved her hand. "Perhaps Earth is filled with nothing but talkers." The youngest leaned closer, her tone like a knife. "If he is so strong, let him prove it." The crowd cheered at her words, wanting entertainment, wanting to see the human humiliated. The king tapped the arm of his throne, his long fingers echoing on the stone, his eyes still locked on the human. "You stand calm before my throne, human. You do not cry, you do not beg. That is unusual." The king said slowly, "But courage is not words alone. It must be shown." The human nodded. "Then let me show it." The sisters burst into mocking laughter again. "He truly believes his life will last long in this court," the eldest said, shaking her head. "Perhaps father should let him dance for us before he dies," the second joked. The youngest whispered, "Or maybe he should be given to the hunters. They would enjoy chasing him." But though their voices echoed across the hall, the human did not reply to their insults. He stood still, calm as a stone in the middle of a storm. The king leaned back in his throne, his eyes sharp, his voice deep with command. "Very well. You shall be tested, human." The guards dragged him away. The crowd roared with excitement. The sisters smirked, believing they would soon watch his defeat. Yet deep inside the silence of the human's eyes, there was something unbroken, something waiting. The sisters did not see it. The crowd did not understand it, but the king felt it. He saw a spark that could not be mocked. The story had just begun, and the court of aliens was about to learn what true strength meant. The night inside the alien palace was quiet. The glowing crystals along the high walls dimmed, leaving soft shadows across the throne room. The king remained seated on his dark stone throne long after the court had ended. His 3 daughters stood nearby, still laughing about the human prisoner. "Father," the eldest said with pride in her voice, "did you see how small and weak he was? It was amusing to watch such a fragile creature stand before you," the second sister added. With a smirk, he spoke boldly, but it was only words. "His kind cannot fight. His body shows no strength." The youngest sister giggled. "Perhaps he does not even understand fear. Maybe humans are too foolish to know when they should bow." The king raised his hand and silence fell. His golden eyes narrowed. He was not smiling. Instead, he looked deep in thought. His voice was slow but heavy. "You mock him, but I saw something different." The sisters exchanged confused looks. The eldest tilted her head. "Different, father?" "He is just a human." "Yes," the king replied. "Just a human," yet he did not tremble. His eyes carried no fear. He stood before me as if he belonged. The second sister scoffed. "It was only an act, father. He wanted to impress you. Humans are good with tricks, not with true strength." But the king leaned forward. His voice grew sharper. "Courage is not a trick when many stronger creatures fall to fear." This human stood still. His chains did not bend him. His spirit did not break. That is not weakness. That is something rare. The sisters fell silent for a moment. Their father's tone made their smiles fade. Yet the youngest still whispered, "Even if he has spirit, what use is it? He cannot fight our warriors. He cannot face our storms." The king's lips curled slightly, not into a smile but into a thoughtful expression. Perhaps not with muscle, but maybe with something greater. He stood from his throne, his tall form casting a shadow across the hall. His crown glimmered faintly in the dim light. He looked at his daughters. "I will test him, not just with strength, but with wisdom. Let us see if humans carry more than fragile bodies." The eldest frowned. "Father, why waste your time on him? There are countless warriors waiting for your command. Why care for a human?" The king turned his gaze on her, his eyes sharp as blades. "Because arrogance blinds us. You laugh at him now, but arrogance can destroy empires. We must know the truth of what he carries." The second sister lowered her head slightly, her smile fading. The youngest crossed her arms but did not speak again. Meanwhile, in the lower chambers of the palace, the human sat in silence. The guards had locked him in a room with stone walls and no windows. Yet he was calm. He was not afraid of the silence. Instead, he sat cross-legged, breathing slowly, his mind steady. One guard whispered to another, "Strange, most prisoners cry or scream. But this one does not even ask for water," the other replied. "The king sees something in him. I do not understand it, but I feel it too. There is something different about his eyes." The next morning, the king summoned the human once more. The throne room was quieter than before, the crowd smaller. But the 3 alien sisters were present again, their eyes full of curiosity and mockery. The king spoke, his voice echoing through the hall. "Human, today you will not fight. Instead, you will answer. You will speak of your kind of Earth, of the reason your people survived despite weakness." The human bowed his head slightly, then raised it, his voice calm. "Ask, and I will answer." The eldest sister laughed softly. "Let us see what stories he invents now." The king ignored her and asked, "Your people are fragile, your weapons simple compared to ours. Yet you continue to live, you continue to rise. Why?" The human's gaze swept across the hall, landing on the king. "Because we adapt, because we do not surrender. Fire burns us, storms break us, wars kill us. Yet we rise again, we learn, we change. That is our strength." the crowd murmured. The sisters exchanged glances. The king's expression hardened, but his eyes gleamed with interest. He asked again, "And what of loyalty? Do humans know it, or do they betray as easily as they breathe?" The human answered without pause, "We know loyalty, more than life. A human will die for family, for friends, even for strangers if it means hope continues. That is why we survive, not because of our bodies, but because of our bonds." The hall grew still. The sisters felt something strange in their chests. They had expected weak excuses, but his words carried a weight they did not understand. The youngest tried to laugh, but it sounded hollow. Pretty words, but nothing more. King's voice cut through her mockery. "No, not just words. I see truth in his eyes." The eldest and second sister grew silent, their faces uncertain. The youngest frowned but said no more. The king rose again, his voice powerful. "You will face more trials, human, not of muscle, but of heart and mind. We will see if your spirit is as strong as your tongue." The human nodded calmly. "I am ready." The sisters watched him, their laughter quieter than before. For the first time, a seed of doubt had entered their hearts. They had mocked him as weak, but now deep inside, they began to wonder, what if he was not what he seemed? The king's interest had only grown, and the game had just begun. Asterisk. The great arena of the alien palace opened under the bright twin suns. Its walls were carved from black stone, rising high into the sky. The seats were filled with aliens from all ranks, warriors, nobles, and even traitors. They had gathered to watch the strange trial the king had ordered. A human was to be tested, not in secret, but before all eyes. The human stood in the center of the arena. His chains had been removed, but guards still surrounded him. His simple clothes were torn from travel and prison, yet his posture was steady. He looked small beneath the towering walls, and even smaller beside the giant alien warriors who waited with weapons in hand. From above, the king sat on a high balcony, his crown dark against the sunlight. Beside him sat the three alien sisters, their faces curious but mocking. The eldest whispered, "This will be the end of his pride. Father will see he was only pretending." The second laughed. Yes, his words were strong, but words cannot stop a blade. The youngest leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "I want to see how quickly he falls." The king did not respond. His golden eyes stayed fixed on the human below. His voice carried across the arena. "Today you will be tested, human. You will face not only strength but wit. Prove your worth or prove your weakness." The crowd cheered. The gates of the arena opened, and a massive alien warrior stepped out, his body covered in scaled armor, his weapon a heavy staff of iron. He was twice the size of the human, muscles rippling under the alien sunlight. The warrior roared, shaking the ground. The human stood still, his eyes calm. He had no weapon, no shield, nothing but his mind. The fight began. The alien charged, swinging his heavy staff with the force of a storm. The human dodged, barely escaping the blow. Dust flew into the air as the weapon cracked the stone floor. The crowd cheered, expecting the next strike to crush the fragile human. But instead of fighting back with fists, the human moved differently. He circled, watching carefully, his steps light, his breathing steady. He waited, he observed. Every strike the alien made was powerful, but also slow. The eldest sister frowned. "Why does he not fight back? He only runs." The second smirked. "Because he has no strength. He delays the inevitable." But the king leaned forward, watching closely. The alien warrior roared again, striking faster. But his heavy weapon grew slower with each swing. The human dodged once more, then picked up a broken piece of stone from the arena floor. He waited for the next strike, and when the staff came down, he jammed the stone into a joint of the weapon. Locking it, the crowd gasped. The warrior pulled, but the weapon was stuck in that moment. The human leapt forward and kicked the warrior's leg. The giant stumbled, falling to one knee. The arena erupted with shouts of shock. The human stepped back, breathing hard but steady. He had not defeated the warrior with muscle, but with timing and wit. The eldest sister's eyes widened. Impossible. He tricked the warrior. The second clenched her fists. It was only luck. The youngest narrowed her eyes. No. He planned it. The king rose slowly, his voice echoing. Strength of mind defeats strength of body. The human passes the first trial. The crowd murmured, some cheering, others confused. How could such a small being outwit one of their strongest fighters? But the trials did not end there. The king raised his hand. Bring the next challenge. The gates opened again. This time, instead of a warrior, several puzzles were brought into the arena, strange alien devices that shifted and locked, glowing with energy. They were tests of intelligence, designed to confuse even alien scholars. The human knelt before the first device, studying its patterns. The crowd waited, expecting him to fail. The three sisters leaned forward, curious despite themselves. Minutes passed. Then, with steady hands, the human pressed and twisted the device. The glow changed, and the puzzle opened. The crowd gasped again. He moved to the second, more complex, his brow furrowed, his hands careful. Once again, after a time, the puzzle clicked open. Light spilled across the arena floor. By the third puzzle, the crowd was no longer mocking. They were silent, watching. Even the sisters had stopped whispering. Their eyes followed every move. At last the final puzzle opened, releasing a soft sound like a bell. The arena filled with astonishment. The human stood, breathing calmly. He had passed all trials. The king's voice thundered. Strength of wit and strength of spirit. This human carries both. Let all witness it. The human bowed slightly, his eyes still calm. He had proven himself. Without muscle, but with endurance and mind. The eldest sister whispered, "He is not what I thought." The second frowned. "No creature that weak should stand against us." "Yet he does." The youngest clenched her jaw, her mocking smile gone. "He may be more dangerous than we imagined." The king looked at his daughters, then back at the human. His golden eyes glowed with a strange light. Interest had become certainty. The human was no ordinary being. The trials had ended, but something far greater was only beginning. The palace was quiet after the trials. The human had returned to the lower chambers under guard, but his victories spread like fire through the alien kingdom. Whispers filled the streets. A fragile creature from a distant world had stood against warriors, had solved puzzles meant for scholars, and had left the arena alive in the private quarters of the palace. The three alien sisters sat together. Their laughter, once sharp and mocking, was softer now. The eldest stared at the crystal wall, her voice low. He was supposed to fail. The second crossed her arms, frowning. He tricked everyone. That is all. He is clever, yes, but cleverness is not true strength. The youngest tried to smile, but it did not reach her eyes. Perhaps, but I saw his face when he fought. He was not afraid. He was calm, too calm for a weak creature. Their voices fell silent. None wanted to admit what they were feeling. But inside, doubt grew. They had mocked the human. Yet he had stood where many others would have fallen. That night, the eldest sister walked silently through the corridors of the palace. She claimed she only wanted to prove to herself that the human was nothing special, but curiosity pulled her. Toward the lower chambers, she stood in the shadows, watching him through the iron bars. The human sat cross-legged on the floor, his eyes closed, his breathing steady. He was not sleeping, he was meditating. His face calm even in captivity. For a moment, the eldest sister felt something unfamiliar, respect. She quickly shook her head, whispering to herself, "No, he is still weak, he is still human." Yet her voice lacked strength. The next day, the second sister passed near the training grounds. There she found the human under guard. The king had allowed him to walk in the sunlight. The human noticed a young alien child who had fallen and injured his arm. The guards ignored the child. But the human bent down, tearing a strip of cloth from his own shirt to wrap the wound. He spoke softly to the child, calming him until the pain faded. The second sister frowned. hiding behind the column. She had expected arrogance or pride after his victories, but instead, she saw kindness. A kindness that seemed natural, not forced. She felt her chest tighten. He heals the weak. But why? He gains nothing, she whispered to herself. For the first time, she could not laugh at him. Later, the youngest sister heard of these things and grew annoyed. You are letting his tricks fool you, she told her sisters. He is still a prisoner, still fragile, but her curiosity would not let her rest. That evening, she went to the balcony where the human was brought for air. She listened from above as he spoke quietly to the guards. Why do you serve the king with such loyalty? The human asked one of them. His voice was not mocking but calm. Because it is duty, the guard answered. Without duty, there is chaos. The human nodded. On Earth, we serve too, not only kings but each other. Sometimes loyalty is not about chains, but about choice. When we choose to stand for someone, that is when it becomes powerful. The youngest sister felt estranged. Chill, his words were simple, but they stirred something inside her. A sense of strength not born of power, but of belief. She pulled away quickly, whispering, dangerous words. Dangerous human. That evening, the sisters gathered in their chamber. Each had seen something different, yet their voices carried the same unease. The eldest admitted, he does not break. Even in chains he is strong, the second added quietly. He heals, he protects, even those not his own. The youngest frowned. And he speaks of loyalty as if it is greater than swords. For the first time, none of them laughed, none mocked. Instead, they sat in silence, hearing the echo of his calm voice in their minds. Meanwhile, the king watched from his throne. He had seen the shift in his daughters. He knew pride was beginning to crack, and curiosity was taking root. His golden eyes gleamed, for this was what he wanted. The next morning, the human was summoned again. The sisters sat beside their father. Their eyes no longer filled with mockery, but with something else conflict. The human stood before them, his chain still glowing. Yet his presence steady. The king spoke. You have passed trials of strength and wit, but the greatest trial is not yet faced. It is not for you alone. It is for those who mocked you. My daughters, the sisters stiffened. Their father's words shocked them. The king continued. You laughed at him, you called him fragile. Yet now you have seen his spirit. I will test you too, to see if you can recognize truth when it stands before you. The crowd gasped. The sisters looked at each other in silence. They had been exposed. Their laughter had turned to doubt. Their mockery now felt hollow. The human did not speak. His calm gaze moved from one sister to the other. He did not need to say a word. His silence spoke louder than any insult. That night, each sister lay awake. The eldest replayed the image of him meditating in chains. The second remembered his hands healing a child. The youngest heard again his voice speaking of loyalty. None could laugh now. Each was haunted by the thought that the human was not weak at all, but something far greater. The sisters had begun the story with mockery, but now shock had replaced it. The human they had ridiculed was slowly becoming the one they could not ignore. Asterisk. The throne room was filled again. The high walls shimmered with glowing crystals, and the sound of drums echoed through the palace halls. The entire court had gathered, nobles, warriors, servants, and guards. All waited to hear the king's judgment after the strange trials of the human. The human stood at the center of the hall, still bound by glowing chains, but his head was high. He looked calm, as if chains did not matter. The whispers of the crowd surrounded him. Some called him weak, others whispered of his victories in the arena. Many simply stared, uncertain whether to fear him or laugh at him. The three alien sisters sat beside their father. Their eyes restless, they did not laugh this time. Their proud smiles were gone. Each sister's thoughts carried the weight of what she had seen. The eldest remembered his calm strength in chains. The second remembered his kindness to the child. The youngest remembered his words about loyalty. Their hearts felt heavy with a new truth they did not want to accept. The king rose slowly. His tall figure cast a long shadow across the chamber. His crown gleamed darkly under the crystal lights. His golden eyes swept across the crowd before resting on the human. His deep voice filled the hall. Before us stands a creature from a distant world, a human, small, fragile, mocked by many. Yet he has passed every trial set before him, not with brute force, but with spirit, wisdom, and courage. The hall grew silent. The crowd leaned forward, listening. The king's voice grew heavier. Our warriors have strength of body, our scholars have strength of mind. But this human has both, and something more. He has the strength of loyalty, of heart, of sacrifice. That is what I see. The human stood quietly, his face calm, his eyes steady. He did not smile. He did not boast. He simply listened. The eldest sister leaned close to her siblings, whispering, "Father." "What is he planning?" The second frowned. His tone. "It is not normal. He speaks as if the human is more than a prisoner." The youngest shifted nervously. "I do not like this. Father sees something we cannot control." The king raised his hand for silence. His voice thundered, "Therefore, I have made my decision. My daughters mocked him. They saw weakness and arrogance in him. Now they will see the truth. They will learn what it means to respect courage. From this day forward, my daughters shall be bound to him." The word struck. The hall like thunder. Gasps spread through the crowd. Nobles exchanged shocked glances. Guards stiffened. Even the servants froze in disbelief. The three sisters shot to their feet, their faces pale with shock. "What?" the eldest cried, her voice sharp. "Father, you cannot mean this." The second stood too, her fists clenched. "He is a human, a prisoner. You cannot bind us to him." The youngest shouted, her eyes wide with anger. "This is madness. We are princesses. He is nothing." But the king's golden eyes glowed with power. His voice cut through their cries. "Silence. You mocked him. You laughed at him. You called him fragile. Now you will walk beside him. If you believe yourselves greater, then prove it not with laughter, but with loyalty. Prove it by standing at his side." The sisters trembled. Their pride warred with the shock in their hearts. The court watched in silence, no one daring to speak against the king's will. The human did not move. His face remained calm, his voice quiet but steady. "I did not ask for this." The king's eyes softened slightly. "No, you did not. That is why you are worthy. You do not chase power, yet power follows you." The human looked at the sisters. Their eyes burned with anger and confusion. But he did not flinch. He simply said, "I will not dishonor your will, king. But know this, I do not seek to own them if they stand beside me. It will not be by chains, it will be by choice." The court fell silent again. His words echoed across the chamber, simple yet sharp. The sisters felt their hearts stir again. They wanted to shout, to mock him, but something inside them trembled. His calm voice held more weight than their pride. The eldest sister clenched her fists, whispering, "Why does he speak like this? Why does he not act weak? Why does he not beg?" The second's voice shook. "Because maybe he truly is strong, not in the way we know, but in something else." The youngest turned her face away, hiding the storm of emotions inside her. The king stepped down from his throne. His heavy steps echoed like thunder. He stood before the human, towering over him. Yet when he looked into the human's eyes, he saw no fear. He raised his voice for all to hear. "This union is not only for my daughters. It is for the future of this kingdom. It is a bond between our people and his. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not fragile. Humanity has proven itself through this one man." The crowd erupted with voices, some cheering, some protesting. But none could deny the king's command. The sisters stood frozen, their lives changed. In a single moment, the human they had mocked, the prisoner they had laughed at, was now the one the king had chosen for them. The eldest whispered bitterly, "We laughed at him, and now he stands above us." The second closed her eyes. "Perhaps Father sees what we cannot yet." The youngest's voice shook, "Or perhaps Father is forcing us to see." The human remained calm, his silence heavier than their words. The king had made his decision. and nothing would ever be the same. The palace corridors felt heavier after the king's command. The three alien sisters walked in silence, their proud faces pale. Each step echoed with the weight of their father's decision. They were to be bound to the human they had mocked. To them, it felt like humiliation. The eldest broke the silence first, her voice sharp. "I will never accept this. He is beneath us. He is a human." The second clenched her fists. "Father has gone too far. He cannot tie our fates to such a fragile being." The youngest's voice trembled, not with fear but with anger. He stood there, calm, as if he had already won. He should have begged, he should have cried, but he did not. That night, the sisters lay restless, their pride burned, yet so did their doubt. They could not forget what they had seen in the human's eyes. Calmness even in chains, courage even in weakness. The next day, the human was allowed to walk freely in the palace garden. Guards followed him closely, but his chains were gone. The sisters watched from a distance, unwilling to go near, yet their eyes stayed fixed on him. He walked among the glowing plants, touching nothing. His gaze lifted to the twin suns above. He breathed deeply, as if the air itself was a gift. A group of alien children ran past, chasing a small glowing insect. One child stumbled, falling hard onto the stone path. The children laughed nervously, but the injured boy's eyes filled with tears. The guards ignored it, but the human bent quickly. Lifting the child gently, he checked the wound with care, tearing a strip from his own sleeve to bind it. His voice was calm. "There, you will be fine. Stand tall, little one." The child sniffled, then nodded. His fear melted away. He ran back to his friends with a smile. The sisters watched in silence. The eldest frowned. "Why does he do this? He is still a prisoner." The second whispered, "He gives without asking for anything." The youngest said nothing, but her eyes followed the human more closely than before. Later that day, the palace. Alarms rang. A band of rebels had attacked the outer gates. They were few, but they carried deadly weapons. Chaos spread as guards rushed to defend the palace. The sisters were hurried toward safety by their attendants, but in the confusion, they were separated. The youngest sister found herself cornered near the outer courtyard. A rebel soldier stepped toward her. His blade raised, she froze, her pride fading into fear. But before the strike could fall, the human appeared, his steps quick, his face steady. He had no weapon, only his bare hands. He grabbed a fallen staff from the ground, blocking the rebel's strike. The sound of metal clashing filled the air. The human pushed the soldier back, his body straining against the alien's strength. Yet he did not retreat. He fought with everything he had. Not for himself, but for her. The guards arrived moments later, cutting down the rebels. The danger passed. The youngest sister stared at the human, her chest rising and falling with shock. He had risked his life for hers without hesitation. The eldest and second sisters arrived soon after. Their eyes widened when they saw the scene. The youngest whispered, He saved me." The human stood, breathing hard, his arm bruised from the strike he had blocked, but his eyes were calm. He bowed slightly. "Are you hurt?" The youngest shook her head, her pride gone, replaced by something she did not understand. That evening, the sisters sat together, their voices softer than before. The eldest admitted, "He risked himself for us." For her, he did not need to, but he did. The second nodded slowly. "I saw no fear in him, only loyalty," the youngest whispered. "All this time we laughed at him, but he has shown more honor than any of us." Silence filled the room. The truth they had denied was now too clear. The human they mocked was not weak. He was strong in ways they could not measure. The next day, when the human entered the throne room again, the sisters did not laugh. They did not mock. Instead, they lowered their heads. Their eyes no longer carried arrogance. They carried respect. The king noticed. His golden eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He spoke. "Now you see, my daughters. Humanity's strength is not in muscle or scale. It is in the heart. It is in sacrifice." That is why I chose him." The human said nothing. He only stood calm, his silence heavier than words. The sisters looked at him, their pride broken, their respect growing. They no longer saw a fragile prisoner. They saw someone who had protected them, someone who had shown courage without demand. The shift was complete, from mockery to respect, but in their hearts, they felt something more begin to grow, a connection they could not yet name, a bond that was stronger than pride, stronger than fear. And though they would not say it aloud, the sisters knew their lives were no longer their own. Their lives were tied to the human, and slowly they no longer hated it. The throne room was brighter than ever. The crystals shone like captured stars, filling the great hall with golden light. The king sat tall on his throne, his crown casting long shadows across the polished floor. The human stood before him once again, not as a trembling prisoner, but as a figure of calm strength. His chains were gone, replaced by freedom. The three alien sisters stood at their father's side, their faces no longer mocking, their voices no longer filled with laughter. Instead, their eyes carried respect and something deeper. They had seen his courage, felt his sacrifice, and now they stood differently, no longer as his enemies, but as witnesses to his strength. The king's deep voice shook the walls. "All of you have seen. This human was mocked, he was laughed. And yet he endured. He has passed every trial of strength, every test of wit. He has faced danger not for himself, but for others. That is true power," the court murmured. Some nobles bowed their heads, guards whispered among themselves. The word had spread across the kingdom. Humanity, once thought weak, now carried a new name, unyielding. The king turned his golden eyes to the human. "You came here as a prisoner, but you stand here as something greater. You have taught my daughters. You have taught this court. You have even taught me. And now, as king, I will make it known. This union is not a punishment. It is an honor. My daughters will stand with you, not by chains, but by choice." Gasps filled the hall. All eyes turned to the sisters, waiting for their answer. The eldest stepped forward first. Her pride was still there, but her voice carried honesty. "I once mocked him, I called him weak. Yet I saw his spirit in silence. He did not break, and for that, I bow my pride before him." She lowered her head slightly, a gesture rare for her. The second followed, her voice softer. "I saw him heal a child. I saw him give without taking. I mocked him for his kindness, but now I know it is his greatest strength. He is not fragile. He is greater than I believed." Finally, the youngest stepped forward. Her voice trembled. "He risked his life for me when I could not protect myself. He should have let me fall, yet he did not. I mocked him the most. But he proved himself the strongest, stronger than us all." Her eyes lowered, not in shame, but in respect. The human listened quietly. He did not boast. He did not smile. He only said, "I never sought to be above you. I only sought to stand as I am. If I am to walk beside you, it will not be by pride or fear. It will be by respect." The king nodded, his voice deep and proud. "Then it is decided. From this day forward, humans and our people will share a bond, not of chains, not of conquest, but of honor." The hall erupted in thunderous voices. Some cheered, some doubted, but none could deny the truth that stood before them. The human had entered as a prisoner, mocked and ridiculed. Now he stood as a symbol, a bridge between two worlds. The sisters stood beside him, their eyes no longer filled with scorn, but with acceptance. Slowly, their mockery had become respect, and respect had become something stronger. The king raised his hand once more. His final words shook the chamber like thunder. "Let all remember this day. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not fragile. Humanity endures. Humanity rises, and in that strength, there is no equal." The human lifted his head, his gaze steady, his silence heavier than any speech. In that moment, the kingdom bowed not to chains, not to fear, but to respect. The sisters glanced at one another, and though none spoke, each felt the same truth in their hearts. The human they once laughed at had changed them. He had shown them a power they could not measure, the power of sacrifice, courage, and humanity. From that day forward, the story of the human spread across the stars, a tale of one who turned mockery into honor, a tale of one who stood calm in chains, fought with wit instead of muscle, and gave respect where none was given to him. It became a story not of defeat, but of triumph, a story that would remind all races that true strength is not in size, not in weapons, not in crowns, but in the heart that endures. The human had entered their world as nothing and left as everything.